Good morning. Welcome back. Thanks for being here, and I hope you're having a great day. I'm having a good day so far. I've unloaded and loaded abyss this morning, and thrown one pot, and I thought I would bring you guys along, and I'm going to make some 6 and 3 pound bottoms that I'm going to make 2-part vases out of. And so here we go. I've got my coffee. Gonna set this aside and start throwing some more pots. So here we go. Alright, here we are. We're gonna throw another one of these 6 pound bottoms. First I'm starting by centering these in 2 different 3 pound clay balls, as I did with the video on the platter bowls. I'm centering them in separate clay balls. For these, I'm going to be putting these back on the wheel, as you guys have probably seen in previous videos, and putting a top on them after they stiffen up for like a day or 2, just depends on what else is going on. But one of the things I'd recommend if you're going to do this and you're using bats with bat pin holes in them is to have one of your bat pin holes or one of your bat pins on your wheel head marked, either with a marker or some paint, or scratch it in the wheel head. I do that so that before I take the bat off the wheel, I put a little bit of clay next to that bat pin hole where that mark is, so that when I go to put this specific pot or bottom back on the wheel head, it goes on the same way. The reason for that is that the bat pins are centered with the wheel head, but each of my bats, the holes in the bat may not be perfectly centered with that bat, so that if I put the bat on this way, or if I spin it around halfway around and put it on the other way, that pot is probably not going to be centered if the bat is switched around the other way. Now, you can figure that out once you put it back on the wheel and it's like, oh, it's not centered, and then have to pick it up and spin it. Or you could just mark one spot on your wheel head, mark that bat pin hole on the bat with a little bit of clay, and then when you go to take it off, as long as your bat's clean other than that one spot, then you know, okay, well, my bat goes back on this way on the wheel, and that allows you to line it back up with the way it was thrown on the wheel. So that's the reason I do that. Just a little tip, a little trick to help you get the pot back on the wheel the same way it came off, if you're removing it, like I said, and then putting that back on the wheel at a later time. And as I've said before, I can definitely center 6 pounds of clay at one time. But there are times I just feel like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna just throw 2-3 pound clay balls instead of 1 6 pound, and it makes it a little bit easier, working smarter, not harder, as somebody said in one of my last the comments in one of my videos. And the fact that I haven't decided how many of these 6 pound bottoms I'm gonna make, and I'm also gonna make some 3 pound bottoms. So if I cut them all 3 pounds, then whenever I decide I'm done with 6s, I've got all the 3 pound clay balls. If I've cut up a bunch, I've got those ready to go. So and I've probably said it before, but one of the main reasons that I do these 2-part vases is mainly for shape and weight, and like I said, just like centering the clay ball in 2 separate clay balls is a little bit easier on my body. It's definitely easier for me to throw a 6 pound bottom like this, come back and add a 2 or 3 pound top on that for a top or a neck, than it would be to throw all that at one time, as far as throwing an 8 or 9 pound pot. So that's the and shape, as far as that goes, I can make a really bulbous round bottom like this, and I don't have to worry about the clay being too soft, where I choke for the neck in to support the weight of the neck that I would put on top if it was all in one piece, because these are going to stiffen up overnight. These actually probably going to have to wait a couple days, because I got to spend a full day tomorrow doing some work for a couple other potters. But I can cover these up with plastic once they start to stiffen a little bit today, and then they'll keep for the day after tomorrow. They'll be fine. So once they're stiffened up like that, they definitely can support the weight of, you know, 2 or 3 pounds on top without really me having to worry about whether the bottom is going to give way to that weight. I can really focus on getting the exact shape I want out of that top piece that I add on. So I'm really focused on getting all the weight I can out of the bottom, but also not pulling too much in the top, because I want to leave some thickness up here, because that will allow me for allow the top of the pot to still have some strength as I make this a really bulbous form. The top still needs to have some heft to it to kind of give it stability and strength, so that it doesn't buckle in as I'm making a really wide belly underneath it. But I still want to get as much of that weight as I can out of the bottom. As my second reasoning, like I said, for making these in 2 pieces, or making a bottom today and then tomorrow or the next day come back and put the top on, is weight. Because I can make a lot bigger pot out of 8 or 9 pounds this way than I can making it all in one piece. So I got a good amount of the weight out of the bottom there, and I've still got a good thickness in the top here. So now I'm going to go ahead and put a little foot there, or the beginnings of a foot, and then start back down there with shaping. Probably could have pulled this one a little bit more, but not going to worry about that now because I've already started the shaping. I also don't want to pull this too thin as I'm pulling it, because if I have a straight cylinder that's only this big around, and then I'm going to make that, you know, twice as big as I shape it, you know, that you're stretching out the clay as you're doing that. So if you make it too thin as far as a straight cylinder, when I go to stretch this out, it would get, you know, really weak by being stretched out twice as wide when it was already thin in a straight cylinder. Another thing that I've talked about before that I like to do is I like to kind of shape the bottom maybe about halfway up, and then actually come to the top and actually push out and go down with my shaping. Seems to help the shape and seems to help the form not get as weak as if I would continue that shape from the bottom all the way to the top. I've noticed at times there's some weakness as I'm shaping, going from the bottom all the way to the top, because it's really starting to belly out in this area, and this is still kind of flattened or not as bulbous, and it just doesn't, the structure of it doesn't hold as well. So a lot of times I'll actually shape from the top down for maybe the top half of the pot, and try to make sure where those two shapes that the one at the bottom I started and the one at the top I'm pushing down, where they kind of meet up. And I can always come back and adjust it from the top or the bottom. And as you've noticed, I don't add any water once I start doing the shaping. That's a big help. It's a tough thing to learn to do, but once you learn how to throw without adding any extra water, it will really help you in your forms as far as making bigger, wider forms like this, and not have to use extremely stiff clay. Because if you're going to add a lot of water, you would need to use a lot stiffer clay than what I'm using to push that out, and continue to add water the whole time as you're doing that, because that water is going to soak in, as you all probably know, as you're throwing. And if you continue to add water during that shaping process, it's going to get softer and softer until you just really may have an issue with how soft that gets. That's a really nice bulbous bottom there, and alright, now I'm going to find that spot on the wheel that I was talking about next to that bat pin. Take a little bit of slip and just put it around that bat pin hole, and because the rest of my bat is clean, and I'll know to look for that clay around that bat pin hole. I'll probably move these later as well to go on a table, and that way I can put plastic over them to keep for day after tomorrow. If I was actually going to just put the tops on tomorrow, I could probably get away with actually, depending on the weather, I could probably get away with leaving them uncovered for most of the day, if not all the day, until tomorrow morning. One of the problems I see a lot of potters have, the ones that I have coached a little bit here or there, is that I think really with any size clay ball, but especially the bigger clay ball, the bigger the pot you're going for, really, but any size. So let me just kind of backtrack. Really, any size pot, one of the biggest problems I see people get themselves in, or trouble they get themselves in, is trying to pull too much in any single pull, especially the first couple pulls. You'll probably notice that I could get a whole lot more clay out of my first pull than that right there if I really wanted to. But what I'm doing is I'm pulling more clay out of the bottom half than the top. When I got to the top, I really didn't pull any at all. I just kind of followed through, and I've still got that clay at the top, probably a ½ inch thick. And I'm really just trying to even that clay out and get it going upwards before I thin out too much at the top. I had a friend of mine here a couple years ago, and we got talking about, I was throwing a 6-pound tall skinny bottle, and it might have taken me 4 or 5 pulls to get all the clay that I wanted out of that 6 pounds of clay. And he remarked to me, he said, I was kind of always taught that if you can't get it done in 3 pulls, you're not doing it right. And I pulled out the measuring tape and I measured the cylinder that I just pulled out of 6 pounds of clay, and I don't remember how tall it was, 20 some inches. And I said, yeah, but how many potters do you know that you can get 21 inches out of 6 pounds of clay in a cylinder? And I said, to me, I don't care if I get it done in 3 pulls or not. Yes, I do think a lot about being productive and making sure that I'm not wasting effort and wasting time as I'm making things. But when it comes to certain shapes and making a nice pot, I think it's more efficient to make sure that you're pulling correctly than it is to make sure you're pulling as much clay as you can, because if I pull this incorrectly and it causes a wobble or makes it harder for me to get the shape that I want, that's more frustrating to me than to take my time and get it pulled correctly so that I can get the shape that I want. Because I'll get frustrated if the shape is not turning out right, or if it's got a wobble in it. That will aggravate me and frustrate me more than just taking a little bit more time to do it correctly the first time. Plus, if that wobble or that thinness causes you to lose that piece, then you really just wasted all the time that you put into that. Of course, unless you learn from that and then change, then it wasn't necessarily wasted time because you learned. But it's better to learn from somebody else's mistake than your own, right? Yeah, I've heard that said, that wisdom is not learning from your own mistakes, it's learning from others' mistakes. If you can learn from others' mistakes and not make it yourself, then that's really good. But most of us as humans, we have to learn from our own mistakes, and that's just the way it is. But hopefully some things in life we eventually learn to grow and learn from others' mistakes and not just our own. Also, another thing that I think a lot of, in the same vein or same idea as that, a lot of people try to shape too much at one time. You saw, I started this shape here, but if I'd have pushed out weight a whole lot farther than that, the top would have really gotten wobbly and off from trying to push too much in one pull or one shape there. Just like you were pulling, or just like when you're centering, you don't do it all like in the first 5 seconds that you're trying. You have to gradually move the clay where you want it to go, and if you try to do too much at one time, you're just going to cause problems. So I'm all for efficiency and throwing quickly if you can, but if you have to sacrifice the quality of the piece for speed, then I think you've gone over the line and you're going back down the hill on the other side, and you're losing something that you're by trying to gain too much too quickly. I definitely enjoy and I like when I can throw pots quickly, and I still think probably compared to a lot of other potters, I probably still do throw fairly quick. But I think that comes and has come in my life from learning to do it properly and being really focused on doing things correctly, and doing that over and over and over and over has caused me to gain speed even while doing it correctly. Well, they say that repetition is the mother of all skill, and I do believe that if you have God-given talent when you start into something like pottery or clay, that's definitely going to help you get started, and you could see some success just from raw talent. But the skill that you can develop by doing something over and over and learning from your mistakes and other people's mistakes and just working with that medium, that skill that you can develop will take you much, much farther than just that skill alone. Or just that talent alone, sorry. The skill that you can develop will take you much farther than just the raw talent. I don't necessarily have the end shape in mind when I make these. Sometimes I do, but for the most part I kind of wait until I go to put the top on, and I kind of look at the shape that the bottom is, and I kind of think in my mind what kind of top would look good on a bottom shape like this, and that's kind of how I go about making the tops for these. Alright, once again we're going to mark that spot, that bat pin, with a little bit of slip out of my splash pan. Alright, I'm probably going to throw some more 6-pounders, but just for the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and throw one 3-pound bottom right now, and then I'll probably just cut the camera off and get back to work throwing 6s and 3s, and maybe if I have time when I come back to put the tops on, I'll bring you back again, although I did just make a video on adding tops to bottoms. Those were 9-pound bottoms, but either way, I'm going to go ahead and throw a 3-pound bottom here for the sake of the video. Great thing is if I throw another 4 or 5, 6 of those 6-pound bottoms, and then I switch to the 3s, the 3s are going to feel so easy, kind of like swinging a bat with a weight on it while you're in the batting circle. If you've ever played baseball or softball, if you're swinging that bat with a weight on it, or swinging 2 bats, and then you go to swinging 1 bat, you're like, man, this is easy now. So that's kind of I'm looking forward to that. Actually, when I switch over to these 3s, I'm going to be like, man, there's nothing to this now. Plus the amount of, see, the mindset behind the amount of focus and attention and steadiness that I need to throw the 6-pounders is really more than I need to throw the 3-pounders. Not that you don't need to be steady, but I kind of just have to, just because of the size of it, I have to be a little bit more focused. I have to kind of just have to have that more attention to detail and steadiness and everything that I need to get those 6-pounders to come out correctly versus one of these 3-pounders. And so that's part of it as well. if I start out with those 6s, then I've got a good frame of mind for throwing other things that might not be as big, but just that require that attention to detail. Just puts me in a good starting point for throwing the rest of these. I'm going to pull one more time, mainly down here at the bottom, make sure I get all that clay out of the bottom. This one I'm going to start pulling out as I'm pulling. These 3-pounders I can do a little bit more shaping while I'm pulling than I can with the 6s. I just have more of a command over the clay, and I think it's just a basic physics thing that this 3-pound clay ball and 3-pound shape doesn't have as much stress on it as the 6-pound one does, as far as being fat and bulbous. There's just less weight there bearing down on it, the gravity pulling it down. Alright, there's a 3-pound bottom. I'm going, actually, let me round that a little bit more right at the top. Alright, there's a 3-pound bottom, and like I said, I'm going to mark this one just like I do any of the others, with a little bit of slip in that corner. Set that one aside. Tell you what, before we finish up here, I'll take you guys out back, show you the pots that I have made so far, some bisque, some still in greenware, and then maybe I'll show you progress I've made on the chimney of the kiln, and yeah, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So here we go. Alrighty, I've got a bisque kiln loaded there and heating up. It's I had it hold at 185 degrees just to dry a couple things out that weren't completely dry yet. It's just supposed to hold there for like 4 hours and then go up from there. And then over here, one of the things I did yesterday was I took some time to clean out around. This is my a storage rack that I made to hold different sizes of pots as they were drying or as they're finished. And so this whole section right over here, this whole bottom section here, was just filled with not junk, but I had some insulation and some boards down there, and some Romex wire and some wood framed windows, all kinds of stuff I just stored in there. And so I got it cleaned out, and I need to actually put the boards in the bottom like I did here. I need to nail those down over there. But got that cleaned out so I could have more space to put pots, and I've also got the braces already here and there that I can put up more of these boards here to slide in my wear boards in. But I've already got some pitchers and vases there, bisque fired. I've got some 3-pound lidded jars there that I finished trimming and decorating the lids yesterday. I've got some soup bowls or soup mugs up there at the top. There's my my 6 and 9-pound platter bowls that I made on that previous video. There's some small baking dishes and some like small, like maybe 1.5 pound platter bowls, or those could be used for anything, a decoration, wall decoration. I'll make a foot on all those so that you can hang them as well. There's one of the larger platter bowls that I made. There's another one in the bisque kiln now. I've got some, pardon the junk, I've got some of the other pieces bisque fired already, some of the larger pieces. There's a lidded jar back there, and I've got the lid for it, but it wasn't made and dry yet for bisque firing, so I just fired it separately. And so that's what I got. That's what I got so far as pieces made. I've got a lot more to make, of course. There's some pieces inside as well that are waiting to be, that are drying and waiting to be bisqued as well. But I've got a lot more to make, but I've got a couple more weeks of good solid throwing that I can do and then we'll be finishing off biscuing every single day. Oh, and I've got some steins here that I've made and decorated. I'm really happy with these. Got a good chunky handle on those for being big, tall steins. And I'll be making tons of coffee mugs. I've got a whole list of things to make, and so I'm going to be just pushing on, making all those things, and making it happen. So here, let's go check out the chimney. Yeah, so here's the chimney so far. I was after I finished the arch, I had about up to here laid with brick for the chimney. And since I finished the arch, I filled in that back wall of the kiln, and then started working on the chimney. I guess I could take you inside and show you the back wall of the kiln as well. But I had to take and taper in, step in with each layer of brick as I went up on the sides there. And then I stayed flush with the back wall of the kiln and the back wall of the chimney here. It stayed flush. And then I got up to there, and I needed to put the place where, those are where my dampers are going to be. I've stopped there because I've got a couple pieces of metal that I have one piece of metal that I need cut in order to make a brace that's going to go on the bottom and the top side of that area there where my dampers are going to slide in and out. So the chimney is actually divided in half all the way down to the bottom, and so I'm going to have two dampers to be able to control the flow kind of side to side, as well as just having like I said, the dampers being here instead of on top of the chimney. I'll actually be able to just stand on a ladder and pull those dampers or push them in. Then I've got the passive dampers on the back here, two on the back, and then one on each side as well. So we'll walk inside real quick, and I'll show you the back wall of the kiln where I finished that off, and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah, I don't know if you guys had seen this yet or not, other than following me. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you probably have seen this, but I think I laid all the way up to like here, of course, before I did the arch. So I had to cut a bunch of these brick at funny angles to fill in that gap around there. And so filled that in, got a couple more holes up here for air to go into the chimney. But I got all that filled in nice and neat. So the back wall of the kiln is done, and the chimney is above the arch now, and just got about 5 or 6 more feet of chimney to lay, which is not bad, but I've got some larger pieces I'm going to be using to lay the top part of the chimney, which will make that go a lot quicker. I got an insulation to do on top of the arch and the castable, and then it's ready to rock and roll. All right, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for being here as always. I appreciate the support on the channel and all the shares and likes and all that. I really do appreciate it, and I hope it helped you. I hope this video helped you. I hope you learned something, and just go out, make some amazing pots, and be amazing yourself, and that'll make me happy. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.